Fairfield-Suisun Army Air Base. Built in 1942 to provide aircraft and supplies to the Pacific Ocean Theater during World War II. Following the war and the establishment of the U.S. Air Force as a separate service in 1947, the installation was renamed Fairfield-Suisun Air Force Base. To the local community, the base had become a way of life, providing jobs and a sense of stability to the region. By the late 1940s, the base had expanded to become an integral part of the United States Air Force with the activation of the 9th Strategic Reconnaissance Wing. In July of 1950, soon after the outbreak of the Korean War, the Joint Chiefs of Staff decided to send 10 nuclear-capable B-29 Superfortress bombers to Guam as a deterrent to a People's Republic of China attack on Taiwan. Each B-29 was to be loaded with a Mark IV nuclear bomb and to safely transport those bombs without the nuclear core. A B-29 bomber at the Fairfield-Suisun Air Force Base was outfitted to participate in this top-secret mission. There were 20 passengers and crewmen on board the B-29 when it commenced takeoff, including the commander of the 9th Bombardment Wing, Brigadier General Robert F. Travis.
August the 5th in 1950 was, of course, a hot summer day. It was starting of August, which is to be expected in this part of the country as the height of summer. It started down the runway, and partially down the runway it lost number 2 engine, I guess it was. It was too late to abort, so they had to take off, and they were overloaded. They had all these people on it, and weight and gasoline and one thing and another. But they made a takeoff with 3 engines, and they were going to make a circle to the right and come back and land. They never got to 500 feet.
With the failure of the number 2 engine and the drag caused by the stuck landing gear, the aircraft was unable to accelerate.
They called the tower for an emergency, and the tower called fire department, and their intention was to land on 2-1 left, so we moved out to 2-1 left to stand by for the landing. And the landing never turned up, and I went to the tower and find out what was going on. The tower didn't really know either. They lost contact with the airplane. I got a call from the structural station to me that said that they'd had a call from some unknown source that the NCO club was on fire, and so they had dispatched the 2 structural fire pieces of equipment to the fire there. They called back and said it wasn't a structural fire at all, it was the B-29 that had crashed.
The bulk of the wreckage came to a stop 100 feet from a trailer court and immediately burst into flames.
We were out in the far end of the other runway, and we were probably 10 minutes getting from there up to the other side of the base to where the crash was. As far as the crash scene itself, I got there a couple, 2 or 3, 4 minutes before the crash equipment started to get in there. They were large, heavy equipment. It was fully involved then. There was flames everywhere. The tail section was not involved, and the back tail portion of it from the Bombay on back were intact, but it was surrounded by flames because the nose had broken off and a wing had broken off. After we got there, I had to pick 5 people for a rescue crew behind me. We were trying to set up a channel that we could get through to along the side of the airplane so we could cut into the airplane. And we started to cut into the thing, and that's when it blew up.
"20 minutes after the crash, the 5,000 pounds of explosives in the Mark IV bomb detonated, spreading wreckage and burning fuel over a 2-square-mile area.
And it was kind of an odd feeling. I heard the kind of a rumbling noise and felt something just lift me up gently and turn me around, and I don't remember anything after that for quite a long time.
The blast and shock wave was felt and heard for miles, causing fatal injuries to civilian and military personnel and extensive damage to private and government properties.
And the 3 GIs behind me, they were immediately killed. The 4th one was burned pretty badly, and the 5th fellow, they found him wrapped up in a piece of sheet metal off the airplane, and he walked away. Finally, he was out of the hospital the next day with a few bumps and bruises. So I came to down in the bottom of the crater that it blew, and where the landing gear was, it was magnesium, and it was burning and popping, and brought me to was it was popping and burning in the back of my head. And I remember lifting up an arm and picking the damn magnesium out of the back of my head, and then I started crawling up out of the hole, and I'd crawl up a ways and I guess slide back down and pass out and do it again. And finally I got out, and when I got out, there was no one there. Everything was fire as far as you could see in all directions. Everything seemed so quiet. It was almost peaceful, like everything was burned out, but they broke my eardrums, and so I couldn't hear anything, so that's why it was so quiet. The airplane was pretty much little bits and pieces. There were only 3 items left that were recognizable. One was the tail gun section. The other was some of the landing gear. And the 3rd item was an engine that got blown about 6 to 7 blocks. Finally ended up totaling out an automobile and stopped there. So that was the only 3 pieces that were left outside of pieces as big as your hand or arm or something, which were blown all over the area. I think there was 1 pumper that was left operational, but no crash equipment. So that would have been maybe 9 or 10 pieces of fire equipment that were destroyed. And the 2 GIs came along in a car and found me walking to the south gate and picked me up and took me up to the hospital. Then after that, I don't really remember anything till the next afternoon when they were going to put me in an ambulance and take me down to the hospital in San Francisco. They took me in the ambulance down there, and so I was there for 6 months while they did work on me and grafting and repairing and one thing and another. Every other day they would come in and check you for radiation. They'd come in and they would kid me, well, we're going to come in and see if you glow today or not. And so that's what I learned, that that was an atomic weapon on board.
The crash and explosion killed 12 members on the B-29, including General Travis. On October 20th, 1950, Fairfield-Suisun Air Force Base was officially renamed Travis Air Force Base in honor of Brigadier General Robert F. Travis. A formal renaming ceremony was held on April 20th, 1951, presided over by the Governor of California, Earl Warren, and was attended by Travis's family. Mr. Dittmer received numerous letters of commendation for his leadership and heroic acts. The events that day, as told by Robert Dittmer, remind us of the fragility of war and the bravery of all those who served.